Everything has its time. For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to throw away stones and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek and a time to lose. A time to keep and a time to throw away. A time to tear and a time to sow. A time to keep silence and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace.
I'm privileged to read 4 of Vicki's favorite poems. The first was written by Osama Abu Kabir, a prisoner in Guantanamo. Is it true that the grass grows again after rain? Is it true that the flowers will rise up in the spring? Is it true that birds will migrate home again? Is it true that salmon swim back up the stream? It is true. This is true. These are all miracles. But is it true that one day we'll leave Guantanamo Bay? Is it true that one day we'll go back to our own homes? I sail in my dreams. I am dreaming of a home. To be with children, each one part of me. To be with my wife and the ones that I love. To be with my parents, my world's tenderest hearts. I dream to be home, to be free of this cage. But do you hear me, O judge? Do you hear me at all? We are innocent here. We've committed no crime. Set me free. Set us free. If anywhere still justice and compassion remain in this world. After 40 years of marriage, she tries a new recipe for hamburger hot dish by Leo Dangle. How did you like it? She asked. It's all right, he said. This is the 3rd time I cooked it this way. Why can't you ever say if you like something? Well, if I didn't like it, I wouldn't eat it, he said. You never can you never can say anything I cook tastes good. I don't know why. All the time you think I have to say it's good. I eat it, don't I? I don't think you have to say it all the time it's good, but once in a while you could say you like it. It's all right, he said. Ain't I a Woman by Sojourner Truth. That man over there say a woman needs to be helped into carriages and lifted in over ditches and to have the best place everywhere. Nobody ever helped me into carriages or over mud puddles or gives me a best place. And ain't I a woman? Look at me, look at my arm. I have plowed and planted and gathered into barns, and no man could heed me. And ain't I a woman? I could work as much and eat as much as a man when I could get to it, and bear the lash as well, and ain't I a woman? I have borne 13 children and seen most all sold into slavery, and when I cried out on mother's grief, none but Jesus heard me, and ain't I a woman? That little man in black there said a woman can't have as much rights as a man because Christ wasn't a woman. Where did Christ come from? From God and a woman. Man had nothing to do with him. If the first woman God ever made was strong enough to turn the world upside down all alone, together women ought to be able to turn it right side up again. And finally, Warm Summer Sun by Mark Twain. Warm summer sun, shine kindly here. Warm southern wind, blow softly here. Green sod above, lie light, lie light. Good night, dear heart. Good night. Good night.
On behalf of our family, thank you for joining today to celebrate Vicki. As I was putting together my thoughts, going through pictures and other documents, I realized that this is the fourth service for a family member here at UBC. Our grandfather Reinhard, grandmother Millie, our dad Harold, and now Vicki, our beloved mother. My parents loved this church, this community, a large part of their lives. My dad from South Dakota, my mom from Vermont, meant that there were a few, but not many relatives that lived nearby, so the church became family. Weekly church services, Camp Lael, potlucks, Christmas Eve candlelight services, all were important parts of our lives, and we thank you. Mom came to Minneapolis after graduating from Syracuse University with a writing focus. Writing was something she loved and carried through her life. It was part of her, and even in her later years, she helped her condo community's newsletter. She met my dad at the University of Minnesota, where he was a professor of journalism, and she was continuing to study writing. They married and moved to Columbia Heights. While devoted to her family, her parents, her church, neighborhood, and community, Vicki continued to work and write for local newspapers. Soon, we found League of Women Voters meetings in our home at night and a variety of community civil rights projects. She sought to understand others, found it less to be about sides and more about coming to agreement to reach peace and understanding. Most of us are irritated when we receive calls from political or community activists. She enjoyed those conversations. Vicki loved active conversation, hoping for a variety of opinions, reading new books, book clubs, the evening news, travel to new places, dinners, music, art, plays, opera, dominoes with Betsy and Steve, card games, and chocolate. 70% dark chocolate. 20 years ago, she moved to Kenwood Isles, a condo community in Uptown, which she loved from the minute she walked in. And she became an active member of that community. While we often weren't able to fit into my mom's schedule earlier, in the last couple of years, my sister and I became more involved in her life and her care, and we are so thankful for that time with her. For the last year, life has been filled with my mom's day-to-day health concerns, intermingled with laughter, reminiscing, and my mom's quick wit. I remember one day being called quickly to Fairview University Hospital by a doctor who was sure she was taking her last breath. And when I walked in, she opened her eyes and said, "Did you bring my Kindle? And where are the Almond Joys?" It was 8 months ago that she decided to go on hospice, and we are thankful for the guidance and partnership we had with Grace Hospice. For a while, Mom was in her condo and later moved to Regent, an assisted living. Our family would like to thank Grace Hospice, Regent Assisted Living, for Pastor Doug, who received lots of 911 calls over the years as Vicki's health bounced, and to all of you who were supportive to my mom. The cards that the church community sent last summer were wonderful, and she read them one by one. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Beth. And thank you, Nadine, for reading poetry. Those poems that Nadine read were all read by Vicki here in this room, from this very pulpit, at a cabaret 15 years ago. How can we encapsulate a woman's life in just a few short words? We can't. So I'm not even going to try. We know that she had such an incredible impact on so many people here and so many people gathered at home. Vicki came to UBC 66 years ago and left her mark in this community. As she said, she married into UBC, Harold having been the Baptist that he was. And we are, as I said, who we are in large part because of her. Each year, we give out an award for peacemaking and justice seeking called the Shalom Award. And a number of years ago, we gave it to Vicki. Diane Eyre was recently looking through some old regional files and came across the minutes from the Mid-American Baptist Peace Fellowship that Vicki chaired way back in 1992. She speaks about an International Baptist Peace Conference in Nicaragua, work on anti-Japan bashing, work with partnering white and largely black churches throughout the region, and travels to Philadelphia to meet with other local Baptist Peace Fellowship leaders. There were Peace Fellowship chairs from across the mid-ABC region with Vicki at the helm. Vicki was not, at least when I saw her, not a woman of grace as much as a woman of fierce devotion to doing what is right and treating people right. If she were younger, I imagine her planning a trip to Ukraine, or maybe even to Moscow to tickle the belly of the beast. What would she say? I find myself wanting to get a little embroidered bracelet that said, "What would Vicki do?" I know that she would be critical of all military solutions and the illusion of the quick fix. She would ask who profits from this war, who loses. She would ask, what is the war hiding? For leaders love the sleight of hand that makes us watch the big shiny objects in front of us so that we don't pay attention to what the magicians want us to ignore. As Jesus said, we're going to be wise as serpents and as gentle as doves. When we were going through her things, when her daughters were going through her things, they found, and they're over here behind this big picture board, a map of Burma that she traveled to twice in her retirement, and a beautiful embroidery from the first Kachin Baptist Church in Burma. Way back in 1994, Don Follett wrote a column in the UBC newsletter that his daughter now edits, just like Vicky's daughter, Beth, edited many years ago. Here's a bit of what Don wrote. Social justice doesn't come through wishing we had a better world. You have to work for it. Vicki has been speaking up at caucuses, the school board, church, regional meetings, peace groups, and other sources of change for many years. The League of Women Voters helps her keep abreast of political trends, and writing on education for the Columbia Heights Record kept her in touch with teachers. In the mid-60s, she was helping the first teachers union get started. Then she ran for school board as the only way to get rid of a rabid racist. Her opponents said that if Vicki won, she'd bring all those black kids in. He won, but Vicki got on the City Human Rights Commission, and Columbia Heights adopted a town in the South, an all-black town. The mayor and several councilors came to the Wilsons' dinner party to celebrate their success. In the 70s, it became evident that the pro-life goal was getting control of the caucuses, so a pro-choice committee of Columbia Heights Northeast canvassed the area before the caucuses, and Vicki became a pro-choice state delegate to the Democratic Convention, where pro-choicers held their own. In the 80s, she became a chair of the Mid-American Baptist first social concerns group. The following fall area meeting was focused on abused women. There was interest in promoting women in ministry, so Vicki helped organize a support group. With the help of several Iowa pastors, women seminarians would go to a church for the summer and participate in all of the pastor's duties. Small town churches could thus get used to the idea of seeing a woman in the pulpit. The program was successful, and in a few years, a National Baptist Women in Ministries organization was organized. And some people have said that it was because of Vicki's leadership that several women chose to go into seminary and into ministry. Vicki was president of the Regional Baptist Peace Fellowship when the Gulf War started, and it was decided that a conference was needed. The church was filled, and 100 drove up from Iowa. She served on the board of NABSCO, a group home in Chaska for juveniles. Over the years, Vicki has served on almost every board at UBC and has been a loyal member of Loyalty, and has opened her home to communities and boards and friends, entertaining with a watchful eye for the loners and the outsiders. Vicki is a New Englander by birth. She followed her father's tradition, attending the first Proctorsville, Vermont 3-room schoolhouse, then the Black River Academy nearby, where she was active in oratory. Her father died when she was in 8th grade, but her mother, Millie Pollard Berthold, UBC's first centenarian, went into Syracuse and made sure that Vicki got into Syracuse University, and her brother Fred to Dartmouth. At Syracuse, she majored in speech and radio. Her first job after college was writing commercials for a radio station in Lawrence, Massachusetts, getting experience in campaign commercials. Then she saw an ad for a job in Sioux Falls, South Dakota at a station KELO. She got the job, and Millie drove out to experience life in the Midwest. A trip to Minneapolis got her interested in potential big city, and she and her mother moved here a few years later. She worked for AAA in domestics, planning tours and writing stories. She took a graphics course at the U and later married her professor, Harold Wilson. Besides serving in the support role of Christopher's wife and being active in daughters Sharon and Beth's schools, scout, and church and social activities, Vicki started a business with 2 women friends publishing a newspaper for hardware companies. She was the salesperson for Design Team, which lasted several years, 10 years. There have been some rough spots lately. Her husband, Harold, who brought Vicki to UBC, died last August. This was in 1994. Mother Millie gets several weekly visits in a nursing home, and a recent hip replacement has slowed her down, but mentions some social concern issue, and Vicki can pick up her cordless phone and organize a committee. Vicki was a consummate activist and advocate. She was a part of the reimagining community and reminded us of the importance of language when we spoke about God and we spoke about humanity. I can just imagine her absorbing the confirmation hearings of Judge Brown Jackson and her take on the questions asked to her and the candidates' thoughtful responses. I imagine her laughing at the absurdity and looking at the bigger picture. Now she knows the bigger picture better than all of us can. Vicki introduced me to the writings of Paulo Coelho, the Argentinian writer whose words speak of simplicity and spirituality that is born of experience. Hear how he speaks of the seasons of our lives. Does a leaf, when it falls from a tree in winter, feel defeated by the cold? The tree says to the leaf, that's the cycle of life. You may think you're going to die, but you live in me. It's thanks to you that I'm alive because I can breathe. It's also thanks to you that I have felt loved because I was able to give shade to the weary traveler. Your sap is in my sap. We are one thing. In the cycle of nature, there is no such thing as victory or defeat. There is only movement. The winter struggles to reign supreme, but in the end, it is obligated to accept spring's victory, which brings with it flower and happiness. The summer would like to make its warm days last forever because it believes that warmth is good for the earth, but in the end, it has to accept the arrival of autumn, which will allow the earth to rest. The gazelle eats the grass and is devoured by the lion. It doesn't matter who's the strongest, but is God's way of showing us the cycle of death and resurrection. And within that cycle, there are neither winners nor losers. There are only stages that must be gone through. When the human understands this, it's free to be able to accept the difficult times without being deceived by moments of glory. Both will pass. One will succeed the other, and the cycle will continue until we liberate ourselves from the flesh and find divine energy. Losing a battle or losing everything we thought we possessed will bring us moments of sadness. But when those moments pass, we will discover the hidden strength that exists in each of us, a strength that will surprise us and increase our self-respect. We will look around and say to ourselves, I survived. And we will be cheered by our words. Only those who fail to recognize that inner strength will say, I lost, and be sad. Others, even though they were defeated and feel humiliated by the things the winners are saying about them, will allow themselves to shed a few tears but never succumb to self-pity. They know that this is merely a pause in the fighting and that for the moment they are at a disadvantage. They listen to the beating of their heart. They're aware of being tense, of being afraid. They consider their life and discover that despite the fear, their faith is still alive in their soul, driving them forward. They try to work out what they did wrong and what they did right. They take advantage of this moment of defeat to rest, to heal their wounds, to devise new strategies and equip themselves better. Then the day dawns and a new battle knocks on the door. They're still afraid, but they have to act. Either that or remain forever lying on the ground. They get up and face their opponent, remembering the suffering they have endured and which they no longer wish to endure. Their previous defeat means that this time they must win because they don't want to suffer the same pain again. But if victory is not there this time, it will be the next time. And if not the next time, then the time after that. The important thing is to get back on your feet. Only he who gives up is defeated. Everyone else is victorious. And the day will come when those difficult moments are merely stories to be told proudly of to those who will listen. And they will listen respectfully and learn 3 important things. Wait patiently for the right moment to act, not to let opportunities slip you by, and to take pride in your scars. Scars are medals branded on the flesh, and your enemies will be frightened by them because they are proof of your long experience in battle. Often this will cause them to seek dialogue and avoid conflict. Scars speak more loudly than the swords that cause them. Thank you, Vicki, for blessing us with your presence, with your wisdom, with your words, with your witness, and with your passion. We'll do our best to carry on the traditions you began in us. We will tell your stories. We will choose our battles. We will not shrink from thoughtful action. We'll take pride in our scars, for they are evidence that we loved, and we will laugh loud and hearty, just like you. Amen. There's a tradition we have here at University Baptist Church. Vicki has gone to join the great cloud of witnesses that we are surrounded by. And when someone has passed from this life to the next, we commemorate their lives by putting their name and attaching it to a bell on these banners. And I'd like to invite her family to come and add her bell to the banners. We were able to find Harold's bell put on here so many years ago. And Vicki is with him now. Why don't you ring the banners a little bit? In a couple of months, on Memorial Day, Vicki's remains will be interred next to Harold's in South Dakota. Let's say together this prayer of St. Francis, which Vicki lived into in her life. I'll say the words that are not in bold, you say the words in bold. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is hatred, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be loved as to love. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned. Let's sing one more hymn. Amazing Grace, number 547 in your black hymnal. We give so much thanks for the life of Victoria Pollard Wilson. We ask God that you hold us all as we go forth from this place. Hold Beth and Sharon especially, and hold Vicki close at your heart, and take her home. May she watch over us as an angel, as a reminder to do what's right, a reminder to take care, to be attentive to the world, a reminder to look out for the lost, and a reminder that a good laugh and good chocolate is a great blessing to everyone. As you go from this place, may God bless us and keep us. May God's face shine upon us and be gracious unto us. May the light of God's countenance be lifted up and give us all peace, now and forevermore. For beloved friends, the service now begins. Let the people say,